The old micro recorder in her desk drawer still smelled like her father's cologne. 15 years after his funeral, Riley Castellano pressed record, knowing that today someone would try to destroy her. She'd been Ms. Castle for 3 weeks now, playing the part of a nervous substitute teacher at Jefferson High School in North Philadelphia. 3 weeks of dropped books, stuttered responses, and carefully cultivated weakness. The DEA badge hidden in her apartment might as well have belonged to a different person entirely. Here, she was prey. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. The morning started like every other since she'd taken the assignment. Riley stood before her second period chemistry class, chalk trembling slightly in her hand as she wrote molecular formulas on the board. The tremor was practiced, perfected during her undercover training. Show vulnerability, her handler had said. Make them think you're harmless. Can anyone tell me the chemical composition of methamphetamine? She asked, turning to face 32 teenagers who couldn't have cared less about chemistry. In the back row, Tyler Morrison lounged in his seat like he owned the place, which, in a way, he did. His mother ran the school as vice principal. His father prosecuted cases as assistant district attorney. The Morrison family dynasty had ruled Jefferson High for a decade, and Tyler wore that power like his letterman jacket, casually, arrogantly, untouchably. Why would we need to know that? Ms. Castle, Tyler's voice carried that particular tone teenagers master when they smell weakness. Planning to cook some up in your sad little apartment. Laughter rippled through the classroom. Riley's cheeks flushed on cue. She adjusted her wire-rimmed glasses, clear glass. No prescription needed, but perfect for the character she played. I just thought, since it's unfortunately relevant to... She let her voice trail off, let her shoulders slump. The art of appearing defeated while actually gathering intelligence was delicate. Too weak, and they'd ignore her completely. Not weak enough, and they'd suspect. Relevant to what? Tyler stood now. All 6 feet 2 inches of athletic privilege. His crew, Marcus Thompson, Brad Stevens, Kevin Park, shifted in their seats like wolves responding to their alpha. You implying something about us? Riley's fingers found the recorder in her pocket, checking that the red light was visible on her lanyard. Pennsylvania's 2-party consent laws were brutal, but she'd learned to work within them. The notice was clearly displayed. Legal. Admissible. No, I just meant, in general, drugs are a problem everywhere. Tyler moved forward, his basketball sneakers squeaking against the linoleum, each step calculated, predatory. Riley had seen the same approach in drug busts, dealers sizing up potential customers or threats, but Tyler was smoother, protected by lawyers and precedent instead of just street reputation. See? That's your problem, Ms. Castle. He stopped at her desk, picked up her lesson plan. You think you know about problems, but you're just some substitute teacher who couldn't even get a real job. What would you know about our lives? The paper tore slowly in his hands, deliberately. The sound filled the silent classroom like a scream. Riley's hand tightened on the recorder. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Evidence. Mija. It's the only weapon the powerless have against the powerful. But you have to be smarter than them. You have to let them hang themselves with their own rope. Eduardo Castellano had been a civil rights attorney, fighting cases everyone said were unwinnable. He'd taught Riley about justice while other fathers taught their daughters about princesses. Even dying of cancer, he'd kept working, kept fighting, kept recording. The same recorder she carried now had captured his final case notes, dictated from his hospital bed. "I'm sorry," Riley whispered, and gathering the torn pieces of her lesson plan. "I'll print another copy." Tyler smiled, that particular smile she'd seen on too many faces, the expression of someone who'd never faced consequences. "You do that, and maybe think about whether this job is really for you. Substitute teachers are so replaceable." The bell rang. Students flooded out. But Tyler lingered, his crew forming a semicircle around Riley's desk. "We have chemistry study group today," Tyler said, emphasis on chemistry that would have been obvious to anyone paying attention. "Down in the lab basement. You won't interrupt us, will you, Ms. Castle?" "Of course not," Riley murmured. Marcus Thompson laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Good, because accidents happen in chemistry labs. Dangerous place for someone clumsy." They left her there, surrounded by torn paper and the lingering scent of Tyler's expensive cologne. Riley waited until their footsteps faded before allowing herself a real breath. 3 weeks of this. 3 weeks of careful documentation. Of building a case that would stick even against the Morrison legal machine. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma Rodriguez, the student journalist who'd become an unexpected ally. "Got the basement footage, you need to see this." Riley glanced at the clock. 11:43 a.m. She had 4 minutes before the hallway would flood with students heading to lunch. 4 minutes to check Emma's footage and decide her next move. The video was damning. Tyler and his crew in the chemistry lab basement, measuring white powder with the precision of experienced dealers. But more interesting was what happened at the edges of the frame. Other students, younger ones, nervously approaching with cash. A whole ecosystem of addiction and exploitation, protected by blind spots in the camera system and adults who looked the other way. Riley's brother Jake had been one of those nervous kids once. Different school, different dealers, same story. She'd found him on their bathroom floor, 16 years old and blue-lipped, the needle still in his arm. The paramedics said he'd been dead for an hour before she got home from college. That's why she'd joined the DEA. That's why she'd learned to become anyone, to infiltrate anywhere. And that's why she could play the victim so convincingly. She knew what it felt like to be powerless against systems designed to protect the wrong people. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Stop digging, or we'll make you stop." Riley smiled grimly. Threats were evidence too. She screenshotted the message, forwarded it to her DEA handler's encrypted email. Then she deleted the original, knowing they'd check. The hallway clock showed 11:47 a.m. Time to move. Riley gathered her things, making sure the recorder was visible on her lanyard, the red light blinking steadily. She'd learned that hiding the device made people suspicious, but wearing it openly made them careless. They assumed she wouldn't dare use it, not in a two-party consent state, not when the Morrisons had sued the last teacher who'd tried to document Tyler's behavior. But that teacher hadn't had a law degree gathering dust in a drawer, hadn't spent years studying case precedent while sitting by her father's hospital bed, hadn't memorized every exception to Pennsylvania's recording laws. The hallway was still mostly empty. Riley's footsteps echoed as she headed toward her car, needing to grab the backup recorder from her glove compartment. She'd learned redundancy from her father, too. Always have multiple forms of documentation. Always assume the first one will be destroyed. She didn't see Tyler until it was too late. He stepped out from behind the trophy case, that same predatory smile playing on his lips. Marcus, Brad, and Kevin materialized from other hiding spots, forming a circle she couldn't escape. "Ms. Castle," Tyler's voice dripped false concern. "Heard you've been asking questions about our chemistry study group." Riley's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. Fear was expected. Panic would be suspicious. "I just want all students to succeed." Tyler. "Succeed." He moved closer, his crew tightening the circle. "Let me teach you about success." She could smell the mixture of expensive cologne and something chemical on his clothes. The kind of smell that clung to people who handled drugs regularly but thought designer fragrances could cover it. Riley's trained nose recognized it immediately, but Ms. Castle wouldn't. "Success," Tyler continued, "is knowing your place, understanding the hierarchy, recognizing when you're out of your league." He snapped his fingers. The sound cracked like a whip in the empty hallway. His crew responded instantly, practiced movements that spoke of rehearsal. They'd done this before. Many times. Riley clutched her books tighter, letting real fear bleed into her performance. Because despite her training, despite the badge hidden at home, she was one woman surrounded by 4 athletes who'd been taught since birth that consequences didn't apply to them. "Please," she said, hating how small her voice sounded. "I need to get to my car." "Your car," Tyler laughed. "That piece of shit Honda with the missing hubcap. Yeah, we know all about you, Ms. Castle, where you live, what you drive, how much substitute teachers make." His eyes glittered with malice. How much it would cost to defend against a lawsuit. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Tyler's father had destroyed careers with frivolous lawsuits, bleeding defendants dry with legal fees even when the cases were eventually dismissed. The Morrison family strategy: win through attrition, not merit. "I haven't done anything wrong," Riley said. "Haven't you?" Tyler grabbed her lesson plan from her stack of books. The same dramatic tear, but this time he let the pieces flutter to the floor like snow. "Asking inappropriate questions about students, creating a hostile learning environment sounds like harassment to me." Marcus pretended to stumble, his shoulder hitting Riley hard enough to knock her books flying. As she bent to retrieve them, her mind catalogued every detail. The position of the security cameras, or rather where they should have been, the blind spots were surgical, deliberate. Someone had mapped this hallway for maximum deniability. "Oops," Brad said, grabbing her blazer as if to help her up. "Let me get that." The fabric pulled, twisted. Riley heard the seam starting to give. This was escalating faster than she'd anticipated. Her hand moved toward the panic button on her key fob, the one that would alert her handler. But Kevin's foot caught him down on her dropped keys. "Careful," he said. "Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." That's when she saw it in the trophy case reflection. Brad's other hand moving toward her dropped purse, the white powder packet barely visible between his fingers. They weren't just planning to humiliate her. They were planning to frame her. Time slowed. Riley's mind raced through options. Break cover. Fight back. Let it play out, and trust the recording would be enough. Her father's voice again. "Sometimes you have to take the hit to win the fight. Mija. Sometimes the bruises are the evidence you need." She forced her body to remain passive, vulnerable. Let Brad's hand near her purse. Let the fabric of her blazer stretch and tear. Let them think they were winning. The hallway clock ticked toward 11:53. In 2 minutes. The lunch bell would ring. In 2 minutes. This carefully orchestrated assault would have an audience. Tyler checked his phone, timing it perfectly. His smile widened. "You know what happens to nosy substitutes?" he asked, leaning close enough that she could see the dilated pupils. The thin sheen of sweat that spoke of sampling his own product. They learn their place. The blazer tore completely, the sound sharp as a gunshot. Riley stumbled, genuinely off balance now. As she tried to steady herself, Kevin's positioned foot caught her pants hem. She felt the fabric catch, pull, start to tear. Panic, real now, not performed, flooded her system. This was happening. They were really going to do this. "No!" she gasped, trying to pull away. But the circle held. The trap was perfect. And somewhere in the distance, she could hear the lunch bell beginning to ring. The sound seemed to echo forever. A death knell for Ms. Castle, the weak substitute teacher. But maybe, just maybe, a birth announcement for something else, something harder, something that had been forged in a hospital room 15 years ago, holding a recorder that smelled like cologne and justice. RIP. The sound of tearing fabric filled the hallway just as the first students began to emerge from their classrooms. Riley felt the cold air hit her exposed skin, felt the world tilt and spin. But even as her pants tore from knee to waist, even as the laughter began to build like a tsunami, her eyes stayed locked on that trophy case reflection. Brad's hand completed its motion. The packet dropped into her purse. Evidence planted. Trap sprung. But in that same reflection, she caught something else. A red light, steady and unblinking. Emma Rodriguez stood in a doorway, professional camera rolling, a sign clearly visible on the wall beside her, "This area under journalistic documentation." Tyler hadn't seen her yet. Neither had his crew. They were too busy orchestrating Riley's humiliation to notice they were creating their own evidence. "Oh my God!" Tyler's voice boomed across the now crowded hallway. His phone was already out, already recording. "Ms. Castle, dressed inappropriate. This is sexual harassment of minors." The crowd erupted, phones everywhere. Like a field of black mirrors reflecting her shame. Riley tried to cover herself, but the crew blocked every direction. She was trapped in a circle of bodies and laughter and cruel young faces that would haunt her dreams. "World Star!" someone shouted. She could already imagine the video title, "Substitute Teacher Exposed at School." Tyler leaned in close, his whisper cutting through the chaos. "Better lawyer up. Oh, wait, you can't afford one. Meanwhile, my dad's gonna sue you for indecent exposure near minors." "You're done." Riley said nothing, couldn't speak past the knot in her throat that was part performance, part real trauma. Because even knowing this was necessary, even understanding the bigger picture, she was still a woman standing half-naked in a crowded hallway while children laughed and filmed. Her father had taken bullets fighting for justice. This was just fabric and dignity. A fair trade for what was coming. Jackson Hayes pushed through the crowd, the ex-cop security guard moving with purpose. He wrapped his jacket around Riley's waist, shielding her from the cameras. "Move along," he barked at the students. "Everyone to lunch, now." "You can't touch students," Tyler protested. "I'll have your job too. Rent a cop." Jackson ignored him. focusing on Riley. His whisper was barely audible. "Building's cameras mysteriously worked today. IT guy owed me a favor. We got it all." Riley's eyes widened. She hadn't known about that, hadn't planned for it. Sometimes the universe provided its own evidence. "You okay to walk?" Jackson asked louder, maintaining the performance. She nodded, letting him guide her through the crowd. Behind them, Tyler's voice rose in triumph. "This is what happens when you don't know your place, when you ask the wrong questions, when you think you matter." Each word was another nail in his coffin. Every boast recorded, witnessed, documented. The arrogance of the untouchable, building their own gallows. As they reached the administrative office, Riley caught a glimpse of Nathan Chen, the quiet kid from her first period class. He held his phone differently than the others, not filming her, but something else. His eyes met hers, and he gave the slightest nod. Later, she'd learned he'd been coding an app that automatically backed up recordings to multiple cloud servers, specifically designed to preserve evidence, even if phones were confiscated. Later, she'd discover he'd been recording Tyler's drug deals for months, waiting for someone with the power to do something about it. But right now, she was just Ms. Castle, the humiliated substitute teacher being led to the nurse's office while the hallway erupted in chaos behind her. Vice Principal Morrison waited in the office, her face a mask of false concern. "Miss Castellano, what on earth happened?" The use of her real name was deliberate. A power play. "We know who you really are," it said. "We've done our homework too." "Your son and his friends assaulted me," Riley said quietly. "Tore my clothes, planted drugs in my purse." "That's a serious accusation." Mrs. Morrison's voice turned ice cold. "I hope you have proof. My husband doesn't take kindly to defamation." Riley touched the recorder on her lanyard, the red light still blinking. "I do." "Two-party consent state." Mrs. Morrison smiled. "That recording is inadmissible. Illegal, actually. You could be charged." "I had a notice displayed, clearly visible. Your son consented by approaching me after seeing it." The smile faltered slightly. "You're not as stupid as you look." "No," Riley agreed. "I'm not." They stared at each other across the desk. Two women who understood the game being played, even if they were on different sides. "You should go home," Mrs. Morrison said finally. "Take some time to think about whether you really want to pursue this, whether a substitute teacher's word will hold up against a respected family, whether you can afford the legal fees when we countersue." Riley stood, Jackson's jacket still wrapped around her waist. "I'll take the rest of the day, but I'll be back Monday." "We'll see about that." As she left the office, Riley passed the trophy case that had reflected so much truth. Her father's recorder pressed against her ribs, warm with captured evidence. Somewhere, Emma Rodriguez was uploading footage to secured servers. Nathan Chen was preserving digital proof. Jackson Hayes was copying camera files. An army of the overlooked, gathering evidence against the untouchable. Tyler thought he'd won. Thought he'd broken another substitute teacher, scared away another threat to his kingdom. He had no idea he'd just provided the evidence needed to bring it all crashing down. But that was for Monday. For lawyers and courtrooms and federal badges. Right now, Riley Castellano sat in her car in the Jefferson High parking lot, wearing a security guard's jacket around her waist and holding a recorder that smelled like cologne and justice. She pressed play. listening to Tyler's voice echo through the tiny speaker. "Better lawyer up. Oh, wait, you can't afford one." She smiled, thinking of the law degree gathering dust in her drawer. The bar exam passed, but never used, because she'd chosen badges over briefs until now. "Actually," she said to the empty car, to her father's memory, to the scared teenager she'd been when she found Jake dying on their bathroom floor. "I can." The recorder kept playing, evidence accumulating, justice building. Ms. Castle was done being weak. It was time for Riley Castellano to remember who she really was. Monday morning arrived like a reckoning. Riley Castellano walked through Jefferson High's front doors at 7:15 a.m., 30 minutes before the first bell. She wore a crisp black suit, her father's legal briefcase in one hand, a stack of manila folders in the other. The scared substitute teacher was gone. In her place stood someone who'd spent the weekend remembering who she really was. The hallway was nearly empty, but whispers followed her like shadows. The janitor stopped mopping to stare. The early arrival students clustered by their lockers. Phones already out. Everyone had seen the video. World Star, TikTok, Instagram. Riley Castellano's humiliation had gone viral 3 times over. But viral attention cuts both ways. Emma Rodriguez waited by Riley's classroom, camera bag slung over her shoulder. 47 million views, she said without preamble. But here's the interesting part. The comments aren't what Tyler expected. Riley unlocked her classroom door. "Oh, people are asking questions. Why were 4 athletes surrounding one teacher? Why was it filmed from multiple angles, like they knew it would happen? Why did Tyler already have his phone out?" Emma pulled out her laptop. And then someone enhanced the trophy case reflection. The image on screen was grainy, but clear enough. Brad's hand, the white packet, the calculated drop into Riley's purse. Nathan Chen's app caught something else. Emma continued. Audio spectrum analysis, in the background, right before the pants ripped. Someone whispers, "Now," like a cue. Riley set her briefcase on the desk, opened it carefully. Inside, arranged with her father's meticulous precision, lay printed transcripts, evidence logs, and legal citations. She'd spent 48 hours building a case that would make Eduardo Castellano proud. "Is that?" Emma stared at the gold-embossed law degree visible beneath the papers. "Yale Law, Class of 2018. Riley's smile was sharp as glass. "Passed the bar first try. Never practiced, though. Chose a different kind of justice." The door burst open. Tyler Morrison stood there, face flushed with rage. "You came back." "I said I would." "My mom wants to see you. Now." Riley checked her watch. "Actually, I have a meeting with Principal Johnson in 12 minutes, your mother's supervisor. She's welcome to attend." Tyler's jaw clenched. Behind him, his crew materialized, but something was different. Marcus Thompson hung back, eyes darting nervously. Brad Stevens kept checking his phone. Kevin Park looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You think you're smart?" Tyler stepped into the classroom. "That recording is illegal. My dad already filed charges. You're going to jail." "Two-party consent requires that all parties be unaware of the recording," Riley said calmly. "My notice was displayed. You saw it. You proceeded anyway. That's implied consent according to Commonwealth v. Acosta, 2012. Tyler blinked. This wasn't the response he'd expected. Riley continued. "Furthermore, Pennsylvania Statute 18 PCS 5903 specifically allows recording in cases where the person recording reasonably believes evidence of a crime is being committed. Planting drugs. That's a crime." Tyler. You can't prove the trophy case reflection, Emma's footage, the school's mysteriously functional cameras, Nathan Chen's audio analysis showing orchestration. Riley ticked off each point on her fingers. And that's before we get to discovery. Discovery? Tyler's voice cracked slightly. The legal process where we get to examine your phones, your texts, your social media. Riley's eyes glinted. Your Snapchat messages that you thought disappeared. Marcus Thompson made a sound like a wounded animal. Nothing disappears, Marcus, Riley said without looking at him. Especially not the videos you've been taking of Tyler's chemistry study group, the ones you kept for insurance. The room went silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. That's right, Riley continued. We know about your blackmail folder. Turns out, when you uploaded the pants-ripping video, you accidentally included metadata showing what else was in your camera roll. Nathan Chen is very thorough. Marcus bolted. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, but Riley didn't move. Jackson Hayes is waiting at the south exit, she called after him, and officers Martinez and Williams are at the north. Running just makes you look guilty. Tyler's face had gone pale. You're lying. You're just a substitute teacher. Riley reached into her briefcase, pulled out a leather wallet, flipped it open. The DEA badge caught the morning light. Special Agent Riley Castellano, Undercover Narcotics Division. The substitute teacher thing, that was the lie. The silence stretched like a held breath. My brother died from drugs he bought at school, Riley said quietly. Different school, same kind of operation. Protected by parents who thought their money and connections made their children untouchable. I swore I'd stop it from happening to other families. This is entrapment, Tyler stammered. Your dad is being arrested right now. Riley glanced at her phone as it buzzed. That would be the federal marshals at his office. Seems he's been taking bribes to drop drug cases. Your mother's arrest will wait until after school. Wouldn't want to traumatize the students unnecessarily. Tyler lunged forward, but training kicked in. Riley sidestepped, used his momentum against him. He hit the floor hard, gasping. Assault on a federal officer, she noted. That's 5 years minimum. Want to try for 10? The door opened again. Principal Johnson entered with 2 police officers and a woman in a severe suit. Agent Castellano. The woman nodded. I'm AUSA Patricia Chen. We're ready to move forward. Tyler was hauled to his feet, handcuffs clicking. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? Yes, Riley said simply. You're the boy who thought hurting others made you powerful, who confused fear with respect, who believed your family's name put you above the law. As they led him away, Tyler screamed, I'll destroy you. My family will sue you into poverty. You'll never work again. Riley turned back to her briefcase, pulling out the micro recorder. Her father's voice whispered across the years, Mija, the powerful always threaten lawsuits when they're losing. It's the death rattle of privilege. The arrests continued all morning. Brad Stevens, crying as they cuffed him. Kevin Park, silent and shocked. By lunch, 23 students had been removed from classes. The chemistry lab basement yielded enough evidence to support federal trafficking charges. But the real victory came from unexpected places. Sarah Winters, the teacher fired for trying to report Tyler's behavior, provided 2 years of documentation. Jackson Hayes had been keeping his own records, building a case no one believed would ever see daylight. 12 former victims came forward with their stories, each one a thread in the net that would trap the Morrison family. The trial began 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. Media outlets from across the country covered the story of the substitute teacher who brought down a drug ring. But Riley knew the real story was bigger than that. She sat at the prosecutor's table, no longer hiding who she was. The defense had tried everything: motions to dismiss, claims of entrapment, attacks on her character. Tyler's father, out on bail, had hired the most expensive legal team in Philadelphia. It wasn't enough. Marcus Thompson took the stand as state's witness. His voice shook as he described the operation, how Tyler had learned from his parents exactly which laws to break and which to bend, how they'd targeted vulnerable kids, got them hooked, then used them as dealers to younger students. He said his mom would protect us, Marcus testified, said his dad would make any charges disappear, said we were untouchable as long as we followed the rules. What rules? Ayuse Chen asked. Never deal on camera. Always have witnesses ready to lie. Make it look like accidents or jokes. And if anyone complained, Marcus's voice dropped, we'd humiliate them so bad, they'd never come back. Video played on the courtroom screens. Not just the pants-ripping incident, but dozens of others. A pattern of cruelty protected by power. Tyler's mother sobbed as evidence showed she'd deliberately moved cameras to create blind spots. His father remained stone-faced as wiretaps revealed him trading dismissed cases for campaign contributions. But the moment that broke everything came when Riley took the stand. "State your name for the record," the clerk said. "Special Agent Riley Castellano, DEA Undercover Division. Formerly, Riley Castellano, JD Yale Law School, 2018. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Tyler's legal team objected frantically. But Judge Harrison allowed it. Agent Castellano, Ayuse Chen began. Why did you choose to go undercover as a teacher? Riley looked directly at Tyler. Because schools should be safe. Because children deserve protection. Because someone needs to stand between predators and their prey. The defense claims you entrapped their client. I never asked Tyler Morrison to sell drugs. I never asked him to assault me. I never asked him to plant evidence. Riley's voice remained steady. I simply existed in his space as someone he saw as weak. His choices revealed his character. Tell us about the recorder. Riley held up the device. This belonged to my father, Eduardo Castellano. He was a civil rights attorney who died when I was in college. He taught me that evidence was the only weapon the powerless had against the powerful. And did you feel powerless? Every day, watching children suffer while their tormentors were protected by wealth and connections. Knowing that Jake, my brother, might be alive if someone had stopped his dealers. Her voice cracked slightly. Yes, I felt powerless, until I remembered that power isn't about strength. It's about truth. The defense attorney rose for cross-examination, but his heart wasn't in it. How do you discredit video evidence, audio recordings, forensic data, and 23 cooperating witnesses? Tyler took the stand in his own defense, cleaned up, coached, trying to look remorseful. But arrogance is hard to hide. She set me up, he insisted. Came to our school pretending to be weak. Making us think. Making you think what? Mr. Morrison, Ayuse Chen interrupted. That you could hurt her without consequences, Tyler's lawyer objected. But the damage was done. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Tyler Morrison, once untouchable. Sentenced to 20 years federal prison. His parents received 12 years each. The drug ring collapsed entirely, its members either imprisoned or cooperating with ongoing investigations. But justice was only part of the story. The real ending came a year later, in a small office above a coffee shop in North Philadelphia. The sign on the door read, "Castellano Legal Clinic, free services for bullying and harassment victims." Riley sat across from a teenage girl, tears streaming down her face as she described the torment she'd endured at school. Her parents sat beside her, feeling as powerless as Riley once had. "They say if I report it, they'll make my life worse," the girl whispered. "They say their parents will sue us." Riley reached into her desk drawer, pulled out the old micro-recorder. It still smelled faintly of cologne, still carried the weight of all the evidence it had captured. "Let me tell you what my father taught me," Riley said gently. "Evidence is the weapon of the righteous, and bullies who threaten lawsuits, they're usually the most scared of facing real justice." She helped the girl understand her rights, taught her about legal recording, connected her with Emma Rodriguez, now a journalism student who was documenting patterns of abuse in schools. Nathan Chen had developed an app specifically for students to safely record and store evidence. Jackson Hayes trained security guards to recognize and document bullying, an army of the protected, rising from the ashes of the powerful. Tyler Morrison's name became a cautionary tale. The Morrisons lost everything: careers, reputation, freedom. The family dynasty that had ruled through fear collapsed entirely. But in that small office, surrounded by law books and case files, something else was being built. Each victory was small. A bully expelled. A victim vindicated. A school policy changed. But they added up. The recorder sat on Riley's desk, no longer hidden, but displayed prominently. A reminder that evidence gathering wasn't about revenge, but about protection. That justice wasn't about destroying the powerful, but about defending the powerless. Sometimes, late at night, Riley would hold it and hear her father's voice. Not from the recordings, but from memory. "Mija, real power isn't making others feel small. It's helping them stand tall." She thought of Jake, too, the brother she couldn't save. Each child who walked into her office was a chance to save someone else's Jake. Each bully stopped was a Tyler who couldn't create more victims. The last entry in the case file was a photograph. Riley standing in the Jefferson High hallway, the same spot where she'd been humiliated. But now she stood tall, surrounded by students who'd found their voices, parents who'd learned to fight back, teachers who'd discovered their courage. The trophy case that had reflected so much truth now held a new addition, a plaque, donated by the senior class, in honor of those who stand up to stand for others. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action in its presence. Below it, in smaller text, Riley's Stand, 2024. The Morrison family's trophies had been removed, their legacy erased. In their place stood testament to a different kind of power, the power of truth over intimidation, evidence over influence, justice over privilege. Riley closed the file, locked the office, walked down to her car. Not the old Honda with the missing hubcap, but something reliable. Purchased with her DEA salary. She'd return to undercover work eventually, infiltrate another school, protect other children. But for now, the legal clinic was her mission. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Probably another threat. Another angry parent of the exposed bully. She screenshotted it automatically, forwarded it to her evidence file, just as her father had taught her, because evidence was still the weapon of the righteous, and Riley Castellano was far from done fighting. 3 years later, Riley received an unexpected letter. The return address was a federal correctional facility in Pennsylvania. Tyler Morrison's handwriting, once so confident on threatening notes, now looked shaky. Ms. Castellano, I know I have no right to write this, but the prison counselor says confronting our past is part of recovery. So here goes. I hated you for the longest time, blamed you for everything. But somewhere around year 2, alone in a cell, I started hearing my own words echoing back. You don't belong here. Know your place. You can't afford justice. I was 18, playing God with people's lives, running drugs like a game. You want to know the sick part? I felt nothing when kids overdosed, just worried about covering tracks. Marcus flipped because he was scared. But you know what? He also flipped because he was tired. We all were, exhausted from maintaining the lie that we were untouchable. My parents visited yesterday, first time in 6 months. Mom looks 20 years older. Dad's under investigation for 37 more cases. Our house is gone. The money's gone. The name Morrison is poison in Philadelphia. But that's not why I'm writing. Last week, I got a letter from Katie Chen, Nathan's little sister. She said Nathan's app has helped document over 3,000 cases of school bullying nationwide. Said her brother found his purpose because of what happened. I destroyed lives. You saved them. I don't expect forgiveness. Don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know, every day in here, I think about Jake. Your brother, all the Jakes I created or could have created. 20 years feels like forever, but it's not enough. It'll never be enough. Your father was right. Evidence is the weapon of the righteous. I spent my whole life believing weapons were for the strong to use against the weak. Never understood they could work the other way. The recorder sat in her pocket, still ready, still recording. Because tomorrow, there would be new battles, new bullies, new victims needing a voice. And Riley Castellano would be there, evidence in hand, teaching the powerless that they were never as weak as their tormentors believed. Justice, after all, was a marathon, not a sprint, and she was just getting started.